This week, the poison drug supply crisis made headlines from coast to coast. In Texas, methamphetamine mixed with fentanyl was found in a downtown motel. At sea, the U.S. Coast Guard intercepted over 100,000 pounds of cocaine bound for our shores. And behind those headlines, courtrooms, traffic stops, and data all tell the same story. The crisis isn't slowing down, it's evolving. Welcome to Logan's Voice, a podcast where we confront the realities of America's poison drug supply, share stories of truth, awareness, hope, and healing, and fight to end the stigma that keeps too many families suffering in silence. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, tap the bell for notifications, and leave a comment to let me know where you're listening from. All right, let's dive into this week's top stories shaping the fight against the poison supply. There's a fentanyl-laced meth seized in San Antonio. Law enforcement in San Antonio, Texas, uncovered a dangerous mixture of methamphetamine laced with fentanyl in a downtown hotel. The Bexar County Sheriff's Office, alongside the Texas Department of Public Safety, arrested two suspects and seized roughly 10 kilograms of drugs valued at more than $800,000. This bust hits right at the heart of the poison supply crisis. Meth and fentanyl are powerful drugs on their own, but when traffickers mix them, the result is chaos. Meth users don't expect fentanyl, so they don't carry naloxone. Their tolerance doesn't protect them. And that's how we lose people who never even realized they were playing Russian roulette. In a press briefing, Sheriff Javier Salazar said it clearly. The mixture is designed to keep people hooked, and it's killing them. That statement sums up the entire problem. Addiction isn't a moral failure, it's a profit model. The traffickers are chasing dependency, not wellness. If you're listening in Texas, remember, fentanyl isn't confined to opioids anymore. It's showing up in meth, cocaine, and counterfeit pills. If you use, test what you take. Carry naloxone. And if you're a parent, keep that conversation open, because one wrong assumption can end a life. Let's move on to California. In California, the U.S. Coast Guard announced a historic bust under Operation Pacific Viper. Over 100,000 pounds of cocaine were seized in the eastern Pacific Ocean, and 86 suspects were arrested in just a few months. Now, this may sound like an old-school drug war headline, but it has direct ties to today's poison supply. The same smuggling routes that move cocaine are the highways for precursor chemicals used to make fentanyl, xylazine, and methamphetamine. Think about that scale, 100,000 pounds. If even 1% of that traffic includes synthetic opioids, we're talking millions of lethal doses. These routes feed the same distribution pipeline that stretch from the ports to our small towns. This story gives us perspective. Even with major seizures like this one, traffickers adapt. When one route closes, another one opens. The supply chain shifts, but it never stops. So what's our takeaway? We can't rely solely on enforcement to fix a crisis rooted in demand, deception, and despair. Until we address why people reach for substances in the first place, the cartels will always find another way in. And then in Eldred, Illinois, a 36-year-old man was sentenced to 6 years in prison for providing a fentanyl-laced substance that caused a woman's death in nearby Whitehall. This marks another example of how prosecutors are using drug-induced homicide and conspiracy charges to hold suppliers accountable. But these cases are never simple. Prosecutors argue that justice demands accountability for those who knowingly deliver deadly substances. Families, meanwhile, often feel torn, grateful for justice, but aware that incarceration alone doesn't heal the deeper wounds of addiction and loss. This conviction reminds us every pill, every gram, every sale has a human cost. The dealers may think they're just moving product, but in reality, they're moving death through our communities. Our system must balance justice with prevention. Punishment without education just keeps the cycle turning. And every parent, every advocate, every policymaker should be asking, how do we stop this before it ever reaches a courtroom? Up in New Milford, Connecticut, police arrested two men after finding 28 grams of fentanyl, 7.5 grams of crack cocaine, and 4 firearms during a search. What's striking here isn't the quantity, it's the pattern. Fentanyl and firearms are showing up together more often as small-scale dealers arm themselves to protect high-value products. And when guns and fentanyl mix, danger multiplies, not just for users, but for entire neighborhoods. Every local bus like this shows how deeply fentanyl has woven itself into the fabric of street-level crime. It's no longer isolated to drug scenes. It's at traffic stops, in parking lots, in homes across the street from schools. For listeners, the message is simple. Awareness saves lives. These cases aren't distant, they're next door to you. If your community isn't talking about fentanyl, it should be, because the silence is where the poison thrives. Just a day later, another Connecticut bus underscored that same truth. In Waterbury, police pulled over a 34-year-old man during a routine traffic stop and discovered 17 grams of fentanyl, methamphetamine, crack cocaine, and about $1,300 in cash. It's a reminder that the poison supply isn't a big city or cartel-only problem. It's in the glove box, the motel room, the convenience store parking lot. These arrests rarely make national headlines, but they reveal the everyday face of America's overdose crisis. Small quantities, small towns, but massive impact. Every gram of fentanyl taken off the street represents hundreds, sometimes thousands of potential lethal doses. And yet, for every seizure, there are countless more slipping through the cracks. Law enforcement is fighting an invisible war, but awareness is our strongest weapon. Finally, let's talk about the numbers. A recent Guardian analysis released on October 17th shows a national decline in overdose deaths of about 27% in 2024. But don't be fooled. That's an average. 7 states actually saw increases this year, some counties as high as 120% higher than last year. And you know what ties most of these regions together? Fentanyl mixed with methamphetamine. The numbers tell a grim story. Where the poison supply spreads, death follows. Public health officials warn that even with lower national totals, these clusters are deadly reminders that this crisis shifts faster than we can track it. So yes, celebrate progress, but don't mistake it for victory. As long as fentanyl keeps finding its way into unsuspecting hands, the fight isn't over, not by a long shot. This week's stories, from hotel rooms to highways, from courtrooms to the National Mall, paint a single picture. America's drug crisis has evolved into a poisoning crisis. The substances are changing. The tactics are changing. But what hasn't changed is our need for truth, compassion, and action. Behind every seizure, every conviction, and every rally are human beings, families who will never again hear their loved ones laugh. communities trying to pick up the pieces, and advocates who refuse to be silent. If you've lost someone, I want you to know you're not alone. If you're struggling, please reach out for help. There are people who care, people who will listen, and people who will walk with you out of the darkness. If this episode helped you understand the scope of the poison supply crisis, please share it. Talk about it at dinner, in your classroom, in your workplace. The more we speak, the more we break stigma and the more lives we can save. Subscribe to Logan's Voice on YouTube and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Visit logansvoice.org for resources, stories, and ways to take action in your community. I am Logan's voice. I am Logan's dad, and I will not be silent.